Without the flight of the Earls, the plantation would not have happened, but it did in 1610, and London was forever yoked with Derry.
Ulster would never be the same again, but the plantation sowed more seeds than they bargained for. At least that's what we think we know about the plantation, that its division of land created a divided land.
First of all, the land was granted to various groups and individuals, the London companies, English and Scottish noblemen. But we'll come back to that in a minute. The first thing the government told them to do was to build fortified buildings, like here at Bhaha. And from Derry to Bhaha to the castles still haunting our landscape, the architecture of the plantation tells a story of walls, peace lines between the planters and the native Irish. And one tale which has come down from that time tells us why. It's the kind of stuff that every wee orange lad should have as a bedtime story.
On the Wednesday after Christmas Day, 1615, John Brown and John Williams, two settlers on the Mercer's estate near Kilrea, County Londonderry, were taking drink. It seems that Brown's wife ran a modest drinking establishment. See, civilization at last. At this point, 9 Irish woodkern arrived. Nothing happened until after several hours of drinking, when the woodkern drew their swords and slew the 2 Englishmen. Mrs. Brown and the 3 Irishmen already in the house were bound and gagged with great sticks in their mouths. It's really the stuff of Protestant nightmares. The savages charging down from the hills, the hoods from the woods, the woodkern slaughtering the honest planters at their own firesides. But hold on, it says the 3 Irishmen already in the house. So the settlers were already having a drink with the natives. It says the 9 woodkern arrived, but nothing happened until after several hours of drinking. So not only the neighbours were welcome in the pub, but these dodgy boys who came out of the woods. There's another way of looking at this story, that the settlers and the Irish were in cordial terms, living side by side, and used to having a jar with each other. And I'll tell you this, there are some drinking establishments that I've been in that I'm glad there were no swords about the place. You see, walls survive, but in this country you have to dig for the facts. So what about those native Irish driven to the hills and skulking in the woods? Their land was taken from them, wasn't it? Sent to live in the barren wastes, isn't that right? Made exiles in their own country, Akara. So, in the great plantation carve-up, who got what? First of all, we have to take off counties Antrim, Down and Monaghan because they weren't part of the official scheme. English undertakers were given about 19%. Now, that's not undertakers sent over to bury the native Irish. It simply means they undertook to bring in tenants. Scottish undertakers were given another 19%. The London companies got 9% in and around Derry City. Servitors, people in the administration and who fought in the wars, got 13%. But what's this other bit? The native Irish were granted ownership of the biggest share of all, about a quarter. Now I can hear you say, yes, you, watching TV in the Celtic bar, big deal, the Irish got a quarter of their land back. But remember, this wasn't their land in the first place. This was land that O'Neill and his cronies had previously held in their grip of iron. In addition to ownership of this quarter, the native Irish could rent servitors and church land. While they weren't initially supposed to be on the English and Scottish portions, in reality, they were. In fact, of all the plantation estates in Ulster, none were exclusively British. The actual percentage of Ulster that the native Irish were driven from was about the size of this cherry. The fact is that the population of Ulster was the lowest of any part of Ireland. There were enormous areas where there simply weren't any people at all, and it's these which are colonised very heavily by the new settlers. A census from 1659 found that the Irish were to be found in greatest numbers on the moderately good agricultural land. On the best land, their numbers matched that of the British. So while plantation walls tell a story of division, the figures tell a different story of the Irish and British living side by side in peace. And peace was a new thing for the ordinary Gael. On top of that, for the first time they were paid for their labour, they could sell surplus produce, they could save money, and they could buy land.